Long before satellites and GPS, ancient empires built hidden pathways that spanned continents. These secret networks moved more than just silk and spices. They carried ideas, beliefs, and innovations that shaped our world. By the end of this journey, you will understand how these invisible connections laid the foundation for our modern global society. How did a message travel from Rome to China without a single map? What forgotten tunnels still lie hidden beneath desert sands? What does it tell us about our own world that the most vital connections were often the ones kept secret? A merchant in the Roman Empire might travel for months with a cargo of silk, following paths that would never appear on any public map. These were the ancient secret networks, the covert systems of trade, communication, and travel that functioned entirely beneath the notice of official records and common knowledge. The historian Peter Frankopan beautifully termed these the Silk Roads of the mind. This was not merely about moving goods from one place to another. It was the silent, deliberate flow of knowledge, beliefs, and innovations, moving as freely as any spice or gemstone. These networks took many forms. There were hidden overland trade routes that snaked through mountain passes and deserts, deliberately avoiding populated areas. There were underground passages, like those used for smuggling or by spies, that connected cities and fortresses, and there were sophisticated encoded messaging systems, allowing empires to maintain control and share sensitive information across vast distances without their rivals ever knowing. Consider the Phoenicians, master sailors of the ancient Mediterranean. Their dominance in trade for centuries did not come from open seas, but from closely guarded sea lanes and the locations of remote trading posts, secrets they kept from competitors like the Greeks and Romans. This foundational secrecy was not an accident. It was the very engine of their power. Understanding this intentional concealment helps us see these networks not as random paths, but as complex, managed systems. So where did such intricate and shadowy systems first begin? The very first secret networks were born not from ambition, but from simple necessity. Long before empires rose, a lone traveler might follow a trail only his tribe knew, carrying a chunk of volcanic glass to trade for rare seashells. These were the original information superhighways, informal paths trodden by nomadic peoples exchanging obsidian for tools or ornamental shells. This was the humble, vital beginning of everything that would follow. As the first great civilizations like Mesopotamia and the Indus Valley began to take shape, these simple footpaths had to evolve. With the rise of walled cities and powerful rulers came new problems, like territorial disputes and heavy taxes on trade. The scholar James Scott points out that these early states often spurred the creation of hidden infrastructures designed to operate outside their control. The old, open trails were now too dangerous and expensive, so traders and travelers developed clandestine corridors, routes that deliberately snaked around populated areas to avoid both conflict and the tax collector's grasp. This was a pivotal shift from informal barter to organized, secret trade. What began as a simple footpath for exchanging goods became a sophisticated network for moving something far more valuable: knowledge. The technology of bronze making, for instance, did not simply appear in every culture at once. It spread along these very routes as the secret of smelting copper and tin traveled from one isolated community to the next, far from the eyes of any central authority. This highlights a powerful truth: the most groundbreaking innovations often spread through the back channels, not the main gates. The drive to connect, to trade, and to survive is what ultimately paved the way for empires to expand, building upon a hidden web they rarely acknowledged. But how did these early, scattered paths transform into the vast, intercontinental systems that could truly change the world? These hidden paths were carved not by human ambition alone, but by the very shape of the land itself. A caravan moving silk from China to Rome did not simply cross a mountain. It navigated a labyrinth of treacherous peaks, guided through secret passes known only to a handful of local experts. Geography was the silent architect of these networks, and empires learned to leverage the natural world to conceal their most vital connections. Impenetrable mountain ranges, vast deserts, and winding river systems were not just obstacles, they were shields. They provided cover and strategic advantage, turning the landscape itself into a form of protection. Hidden oases, known only to a select few, became priceless waypoints. Secluded caves offered shelter and storage, far from the eyes of bandits or rival states. The geographer Jared Diamond emphasized how environmental factors fundamentally shaped these trade and communication patterns. In the immense Sahara Desert, for instance, survival depended on a hidden geography of underground water sources. Trans-Saharan caravans did not wander aimlessly. They followed these concealed aquatic maps, moving from one secret well to the next, their entire route designed to stay invisible to outsiders. This brilliant interplay between geography and secrecy allowed networks to thrive in the most hostile environments imaginable. Ancient engineers and traders did not conquer the land. They learned to listen to it, adapting their routes to the whispers of the wind and the hidden veins of water. This mastery of terrain was a form of ancient intelligence, a way of turning nature's challenges into a strategic advantage. How did entire empires then build upon this geographical genius to construct vast, organized systems that could span the globe? A single spice trader, guiding his camels along the rim of the Taklamakan Desert, knew the public routes were a trap. While the Grand Silk Road captured the imagination of empires, its true lifeblood often flowed through these forgotten trails, these secret offshoots that deliberately avoided the main arteries. This was the Silk Road beyond the official paths, a shadow network running in parallel to the celebrated one. Merchants chose these rugged, dangerous diversions for the simplest of reasons, to escape the ever-present threats of bandits and the heavy hand of imperial tax collectors. But in doing so, they created something far more significant than a simple smuggling route. These hidden corridors became conduits for the most sensitive and transformative cargo of all, clandestine knowledge. Religious texts, revolutionary scientific ideas, and heretical philosophies could travel freely here, far from the censoring eyes of authorities. The historian Valerie Hansen reminds us that a staggering number of transactions and exchanges happened in the shadows, completely outside the oversight of any kingdom or emperor. This required an entire shadow economy to function. Traders developed sophisticated coded messages, using seemingly innocent phrases in ledgers to conceal the true nature of their goods or the identities of their contacts. And scattered across these desolate landscapes were hidden caravanserais, remote way stations that offered safe haven only to those who knew the secret signs or possessed the correct tokens. These were not bustling inns but clandestine hubs, where a merchant from Persia could quietly pass a bundle of astronomical charts to a scholar from Chang'an under the cover of darkness. This covert layer reveals a profound intrigue beneath the Silk Road's celebrated history. It was not merely a route for luxury items, but a secret nervous system for the ancient world, carrying the very ideas that would reshape civilizations. And just as these hidden land trails wove a web across the continents, another, even more expansive secret network was taking shape upon the waves. While the spice caravans navigated their hidden desert trails, another kind of explorer was mastering a far more fluid and treacherous frontier. Ancient mariners did not see the ocean as a barrier, but as a vast, secret highway. To cross it, they relied on a profound and closely guarded knowledge of the natural world, reading the stars as a map and feeling the pull of hidden currents known only to their guild. The Polynesian voyagers, for instance, undertook journeys of thousands of miles across the open Pacific. They used the rising and setting points of specific stars, the flight patterns of birds, and even the subtle swell patterns of the ocean itself to find their way to the most remote islands on Earth. This celestial and environmental knowledge was a sacred secret, passed orally from master navigator to apprentice, a living map that left no physical trace for rivals to follow. This was the essence of maritime secret networks, a web of hidden sea lanes that stitched continents together. The Phoenicians, whom we met earlier, were masters of this aquatic secrecy. Their route to the tin mines of ancient Britain was one of the most fiercely protected trade secrets of the classical world. They established covert ports and trading posts in secluded bays and river mouths, places that would never appear on any official chart held in Rome or Athens. The evidence for this shadow economy often lies at the bottom of the sea. Maritime archaeologist Dr. Sean Kingsley points to shipwrecks that reveal a story far different from official records. These sunken vessels often carried unofficial trade goods, items that were either illegal, untaxed, or meant for a specific, secret market, proving that a parallel system of exchange was thriving beneath the surface of sanctioned trade. Piracy also played a complex role in shaping these hidden pathways. While pirates were a threat, they also created a demand for and knowledge of covert routes. To avoid them, merchant ships would take long, illogical detours, using hidden lagoons and sheltered coves as temporary safe harbors. The entire Indian Ocean network, for instance, was dotted with these secret anchorages, where ships from Africa, Arabia, and India could meet and trade away from the watchful eyes of imperial tax collectors and naval patrols. This global aquatic web demonstrates that the desire for connection and the instinct for concealment were just as powerful on the open water as they were on land. But if empires could hide their trade on the high seas and their messages in the desert sands, where else could these secret networks possibly exist? Beneath the feet of unsuspecting citizens, entire cities thrived in the dark. A messenger could descend through a hidden entrance in a baker's shop and emerge miles away, outside the city walls, carrying a message that never saw the light of day. These subterranean labyrinths were the ultimate expression of ancient secrecy, engineered not just for storage, but for the invisible movement of people, armies, and ideas. In places like Cappadocia in modern Turkey, these were not mere tunnels but vast, multi-level underground cities, complete with living quarters, churches, and stables, capable of sheltering thousands for months at a time. They were fortified with massive, rolling stone doors, intricate ventilation shafts disguised as natural wells, and complex, maze-like layouts designed to confuse any invader. Historians like Dr. Eric Klein point out that during times of siege or religious persecution, these hidden worlds became a society's lifeline, allowing them to withstand forces that seemed unstoppable on the surface. But their use went beyond mere survival. The same tunnels that protected a persecuted community by day became covert trade routes by night. Prized goods, banned texts, or even spies could be moved from one end of a region to the other, completely undetected by the powers above. This reveals a stunning level of sophistication, where ancient engineers literally carved the need for secrecy into the bedrock itself. The very Earth was reshaped to create a parallel, hidden world operating just below the visible one. How could such immense, organized projects remain concealed, and who possessed the knowledge to navigate them? This mastery of the underground mirrors the way other groups mastered the wide open spaces above, moving through the world without leaving a trace. A lone Scythian horseman could cross 1,000 miles of open steppe without a single written word to guide him. His map was not on parchment, but in memory, passed down through generations of his people. These nomadic tribes were the true architects of the ancient world's secret networks, their entire existence built upon a profound and portable knowledge of the land. While empires built roads and cities, the nomads mastered the spaces in between, creating a fluid, interconnected system that settled civilizations could only glimpse from their walls. They acted as the indispensable intermediaries, moving goods like Siberian furs and Baltic amber along paths that official caravans deemed too remote or dangerous. The anthropologist Dr. Thomas Barfield emphasizes that these routes were not maintained by treaties or maps, but by something far more resilient: oral traditions and deep kinship ties. Your safety and success on a journey across the vast Eurasian steppe did not depend on imperial guards, but on your relationship to the family who controlled the next mountain pass or the next freshwater spring. This created a web of trust that was invisible to outsiders, yet unbreakable for those within the network. To navigate this immense landscape, they developed a sophisticated language of cryptic symbols. A particular arrangement of stones beside a trail, a mark carved into a specific tree, or a pattern of knots left at a campsite. These were all silent signposts conveying directions, warnings of danger, or news of nearby allies. This was a messaging system that left no permanent trace for enemies to find, yet was perfectly clear to those trained in its meaning. Through these hidden trails, nomadic cultures became powerful vectors for spreading revolutionary technologies. The very practice of advanced horseback riding, along with the composite bow and the stirrup, did not simply leap from one empire to another. These innovations traveled along the nomadic relay, passed from one skilled horseman to the next, refined and perfected in the saddle far from any royal court. This highlights a crucial and often overlooked truth about ancient connectivity. The most resilient networks were not always the highly centralized, state-run enterprises. They were decentralized, organic, and built on human relationships. A Roman merchant waiting for a shipment of amber in a Black Sea port was utterly dependent on this intricate, invisible chain of nomadic horsemen, a chain he would never fully see or understand. This nomadic influence set the stage for how even the most powerful empires would eventually have to engage with the world beyond their borders, learning that true connection often flowed through the paths they did not control. A Roman courier moved like a shadow, his horse's hooves silent on the packed earth of a hidden viaticum. While the famous paved roads carried the empire's public traffic, these clandestine highways formed a secret nervous system designed for the swift, unseen movement of everything that kept Rome in power. Encrypted messages, elite troops, and vital luxury goods all traveled these covert corridors, shielded from public view and potential enemies. This was the empire's strategic underbelly, a network of intelligence and control that operated in plain sight yet remained completely invisible. The historian Mary Beard points out that such routes were instrumental in discreetly suppressing rebellions and managing volatile provinces, allowing Rome to project force without always showing its hand. These secret paths took many forms. Some were underground aqueducts, those marvels of engineering, quietly repurposed to allow the movement of agents or the transfer of essential supplies. Others were ancient forest trails, meticulously maintained by allied tribes who knew the land in ways the Roman legions never could. A powerful example of this system in action was the secret transport of Egyptian grain. When a public shortage loomed, causing fear of riots in the city, ships carrying emergency grain supplies would sometimes be diverted to secluded ports. From there, the vital cargo was moved inland along these hidden highways, entering the city through back channels to stabilize the market without ever revealing the extent of the crisis to the populace. This covert logistics network was as crucial to imperial stability as the legions themselves. It reveals a layer of pragmatic strategy that perfectly complements the more mystical and ancient networks of the East, showing that from Britain to the borders of Persia, the connective tissue of the ancient world was often deliberately kept in the shadows. The Great Wall stood as an impassable barrier, a symbol of imperial control etched across the northern frontier, yet beneath its formidable shadow, a different kind of passage thrived. Chinese merchants seeking to trade silk and porcelain with the northern tribes often bypassed the wall entirely through a maze of hidden tunnels and clandestine mountain passes. These were the secret extensions of the Silk Road, an underground network deliberately kept from official records to avoid heavy taxes and potential conflicts. While the state promoted the grand, official routes, the true, agile lifeblood of trade often flowed through these covert corridors. In these hidden spaces, more than just goods changed hands. The closely guarded technology of gunpowder, for instance, did not spread westward along the main, patrolled roads. Its components and the knowledge of its use traveled through these back channels, passed from alchemist to merchant in secluded way stations far from the emperor's gaze. The scholar-doctor Edward Schaeffer documented how these paths served multiple masters. Taoist monks on spiritual pilgrimages to remote sacred mountains used the very same tunnels and hidden passes, turning the network into a conduit for both spiritual ideas and material wealth. This required remarkable innovation to function. Messengers used hollow bamboo pipes, tapped in specific codes, to send signals through long, dark tunnel sections, a form of ancient telegraphy that kept communications silent and secure. Hidden warehouses carved into cliffs or disguised as natural caves stored priceless porcelain and bundles of silk until the right trading partner arrived. This entire covert infrastructure was a masterclass in practical secrecy, allowing China to maintain its economic dominance by controlling not just what was traded, but how and where the exchanges happened. It was a blend of brilliant innovation and deliberate concealment that perfectly parallels the hidden maritime networks emerging in the Americas, where another ancient civilization was mastering the art of moving through the world unseen. Deep in a Mesoamerican jungle, an Olmec trader moved along a path visible only to his initiated guides. These were not random trails, but the arteries of a vast, unseen web, a network of secret trade routes that connected empires from the heart of Central America to the distant southwestern deserts of what is now the United States. While the Maya and Aztec built towering pyramids that proclaimed their power to the world, their true influence often flowed through these hidden channels, carrying goods like shimmering green jade, precious cacao beans, and the iridescent feathers of quetzal birds. As the archaeologist Dr. Michael Coe has highlighted, these networks were far more than simple commercial exchanges. They were the foundation of political alliances and the primary vehicle for cultural diffusion, binding disparate societies together through a shared, clandestine economy. To avoid detection and the conflicts of rival city-states, these traders mastered the landscape in ingenious ways. They navigated complex river systems, using canoes to transport goods silently through dense rainforests. They followed hidden mountain trails and, most remarkably, utilized the natural underground caverns known as cenotes in the Yucatan Peninsula. These stunning sinkholes, with their clear blue water, were not just sources of fresh water. They served as secret trade hubs and sacred meeting places where goods and ideas could be exchanged in a space that was both concealed and spiritually charged. A merchant from a powerful city like Teotihuacan could descend into one of these caverns and meet with a Maya noble from hundreds of miles away, their transactions shielded from the world above. This intricate web of connectivity demonstrates how pre-Columbian societies achieved what seemed impossible, creating intercontinental links long before European contact. The success of this entire system depended on a deeply ingrained culture of secrecy, often guarded by powerful religious groups, priests and shamans who held the celestial knowledge and calendrical wisdom, also controlled the ritual significance of trade goods. They were the keepers of the routes, the ones who sanctified the exchanges and ensured that the hidden paths remained just that, hidden. This unseen web of jungle paths and subterranean meeting points challenges our very idea of an isolated ancient America, revealing a connected hemisphere whose most vital conversations happened in whispers, far from the grand plazas and stone monuments. A Buddhist monk, his robes faded by sun and wind, would walk a path invisible to the imperial tax collector. His journey was not for trade but for transcendence, and the routes he followed were often the most closely guarded secrets of all. Religious orders became the silent cartographers of the ancient world, mapping and maintaining hidden pathways for pilgrimage, missionary work, and the safe transport of sacred artifacts. These spiritual networks provided safe passage away from persecuting authorities, creating a subterranean river of faith and knowledge that flowed beneath the surface of empires. The early Christians navigated the labyrinthine Roman catacombs not just as tombs, but as clandestine meeting halls and escape routes. Sufi mystics in the Middle East moved between secluded lodges, sharing mystical poetry and philosophical insights along desert trails known only to their order. The historian Dr. Karen Armstrong observes that these routes, born of spiritual necessity, unexpectedly became vital conduits for philosophical and scientific ideas. A Buddhist monastery in the Himalayas might secretly harbor not only sacred sutras, but also advanced medical texts or astronomical charts, all passed from one trusted traveler to the next. To navigate these secret spiritual geographies, travelers relied on a language of coded religious symbols, a specific knot in a prayer flag, a subtle carving on a wayside shrine, or the arrangement of stones beside a mountain spring could signal the correct direction, warn of danger, or indicate a safe house just over the next ridge. These signs were meaningless to outsiders but offered clear guidance to the initiated. Monasteries and remote hermitages served as the covert way stations of this global network. They were more than places of prayer. They were secure repositories for forbidden texts, sanctuaries for fleeing scholars, and neutral ground where thinkers from different cultures could meet in secret. This spiritual dimension infused the ancient secret networks with a profound layer of purpose, transforming them from mere commercial smuggling routes into protected channels for the soul of civilization itself. And just as these sacred pathways carried the most cherished truths, they would inevitably be used to traffic the most dangerous secrets of all, the kind that could win wars or topple kingdoms. A single misplaced word on a scrap of papyrus could topple an empire. In the shadows behind the grand caravans and maritime routes, espionage networks operated as the silent guardians and saboteurs of the ancient world. These were not random informants, but sophisticated systems of intelligence gathering, designed to protect trade secrets, sabotage rivals, and maintain imperial control across unimaginable distances. A spy in ancient Persia would not simply carry a message. He would relay it through a carefully orchestrated chain of hidden messengers, each one using encrypted codes to ensure that even if the message was intercepted, its true meaning would remain a mystery. These networks were the secret weapon of statecraft. The Persian king's eyes and ears was one such system, a distributed web of agents whose sole purpose was to monitor the vast empire and report directly to the king, bypassing the often unreliable local governors. But the tools of the trade went far beyond coded messages. In Egypt, agents used invisible ink derived from simple substances like milk or fruit juice, writing secrets between the lines of an otherwise ordinary letter. The message would only be revealed when heated over a flame, a simple yet brilliantly effective method of concealment. Historian Dr. John Ferris draws a direct line from these ancient spy rings to the sophisticated intelligence agencies of the modern era, noting the same fundamental principles of compartmentalization, secure communication, and deep cover agents. These systems relied on a bag of tricks that feel remarkably contemporary. Covert agents would use dead drops, leaving information in pre-arranged, hidden locations like a hollow in a specific tree or a loose brick in a city wall, so the sender and receiver never had to meet face to face. Messages were often disguised within mundane objects, like a trader's ledger where the real information was encoded in the pricing of goods, or a piece of pottery where a seemingly decorative scratch was actually a detailed map. This relentless focus on secrecy and information control highlights a profound strategic truth in the ancient world. Knowledge was not just power, it was survival. The success of these shadowy operations hinged entirely on one critical element: the ability to communicate without being detected. How did they develop these advanced methods to send information across continents without a single word ever being spoken aloud? A messenger in ancient India might carry a simple loop of knotted string, a seemingly innocent traveler's accessory that held an entire secret message within the precise spacing and sequence of its knots. This was the essence of cryptic communication, where the most vital information was hidden in plain sight, traveling securely across the vast, silent expanses of the ancient world. The need for such secrecy drove remarkable innovations, transforming simple signals into complex, unbreakable codes. Linguist Dr. David Kahn has meticulously traced how these systems evolved from basic symbolic warnings into sophisticated linguistic puzzles designed to baffle any unintended recipient. One of the most famous devices was the Greek sightale, a leather strip wrapped around a specific sized rod. A message written along its length would become an incomprehensible jumble of letters when unwound, only reassembling into clear text when wound around an identical rod held by the intended receiver. This was not just a code, it was an early form of encryption requiring a physical key. In China, strategic outposts used elaborate kite signaling systems, where the color, pattern, and flight path of a kite could convey real-time updates on everything from troop movements to market prices across immense distances, all without a single word being spoken or written down. But perhaps the most elegant systems were those based on sound. Across Africa, vast networks used complex drum languages. To an untrained ear, it was just a series of rhythmic beats, but to an initiated listener, the tones and cadences replicated the actual phonetics and syntax of spoken language, allowing detailed stories, warnings, and even philosophical debates to be transmitted from one village to the next with stunning speed and accuracy. These methods were the lifeblood of the secret networks, enabling the discreet exchanges that kept trade flowing and alliances intact. They prove that ancient ingenuity was not limited to grand architecture, but thrived in the subtle, unseen art of making words vanish and reappear exactly where and when they were needed most. This intricate web of silent signals and hidden messages was what ultimately allowed the economic heart of these ancient systems to beat in perfect, secret rhythm. In the shadow of Babylon's towering ziggurats, a different kind of market thrived, one that never appeared on any royal ledger. Here, in the dim light of a back alley, a merchant from the Levant might quietly trade silver for Baltic amber, a transaction that bypassed the king's tax collectors entirely. This was the hidden economy in motion, a parallel system of exchange that fundamentally shaped the ancient world's prosperity. By moving high-value commodities like spices, precious metals, and fine textiles outside of official, regulated markets, these secret networks allowed wealth to accumulate in unseen hands, creating fortunes that were both immense and completely invisible to the state. The economic impacts were staggering. When a significant portion of a luxury good like silk or cinnamon travels through covert channels, it creates a paradox. Official supplies appear artificially scarce, driving up prices for the elite who shop in the open markets, while the black market operators reap enormous profits by undercutting those very prices for their own discreet clientele. This unofficial trade did more than just make a few smugglers rich, however. Economists like Dr. Deirdre McCloskey argue that these shadow markets were incredible engines of innovation and diversity. Freed from the stifling controls of imperial monopolies, underground merchants were forced to be more agile, to find new suppliers, and to cater to niche demands that the state ignored. The covert amber trade is a perfect example. This golden fossilized resin, highly prized for jewelry and amulets, traveled from the cold Baltic shores all the way to the palaces of Egypt and Mesopotamia. Officially, such a route was implausible, crossing countless hostile territories, but through a relay of hidden middlemen using forest trails and secret river crossings, the amber moved, and with each handoff, new ideas about craftsmanship and design moved with it. This constant, clandestine circulation of goods forced entire economic systems to adapt. A regional governor might find his official price controls for copper were completely useless because the real trade was happening under the cover of night, dictated by the hidden hands of supply and demand. In this way, secrecy did not just conceal trade, it actively drove prosperity, creating a dynamic, resilient economy that operated just beneath the surface of recorded history. And just as these hidden routes were conduits for wealth, they became the very arteries through which the lifeblood of culture itself began to flow. A storyteller's voice, low and rhythmic, wove tales of Indian gods and heroes for a rapt circle of Persian merchants gathered in a hidden caravanserai. In these clandestine spaces, far from palaces and temples, the true tapestry of human culture was silently rewoven. The secret networks did not just move spices and silk, they carried the very soul of civilizations, allowing languages, art, music, and culinary traditions to mingle freely, away from the controlling gaze of any state or orthodoxy. This was a world of accidental cultural exchange, where every traveler was an unwitting diplomat of their own way of life. A Persian lute might find its way into a song in Central Asia, its melody forever changed by the journey. A recipe for noodles carried by a hungry trader could slowly evolve into a new staple dish 1,000 miles from its origin. This constant, unplanned interaction naturally led to syncretism, a profound blending of beliefs and artistic styles that could never have occurred under official scrutiny. The anthropologist Dr. Clifford Geertz spent his life studying how these deep cultural interactions shape human identity. He argued that our sense of self is not formed in isolation, but through a continuous conversation with others, and these hidden routes provided the perfect stage for that conversation to unfold. Consider the monumental journey of Buddhism from India to China. This was not a migration sanctioned by edict, but a slow, patient seepage through hidden mountain passes and along covert desert trails. Buddhist monks traveling with merchant caravans for safety carried their sutras and meditation practices into China. There, away from the imperial court's Confucian traditions, these Indian ideas began to blend with local Taoist philosophies, eventually giving birth to an entirely new and distinct form of Chinese Buddhism, Chan, which would later be known as Zen in Japan. This transformation happened in the quiet spaces between empires, in the minds of travelers who met in the shadows. The music of one culture would borrow the scales of another. Architectural motifs from Persia would appear subtly in the woodwork of a Central Asian home. Even the words we speak bear the invisible stamps of these ancient covert exchanges, with linguistic traces passing from one language to another like secret handshakes down the centuries. This silent, profound enrichment reveals that these networks were never merely economic tools. They were the living veins of a shared humanity, pumping cultural lifeblood across continents. And just as these ideas left their mark on language and belief, they were also being carved into the very stones of the world, leaving behind an architectural legacy that whispers their story to this day. The stone-carved city of Petra appears as a magnificent facade, a public declaration of wealth and power, but behind its grand temples lay a secret, a network of narrow, hidden aqueducts that channeled more than just water. These same water channels, carved deep within the rose-red rock, doubled as clandestine passageways, allowing merchants and their valuable goods to move unseen through the heart of the city. This was the genius of ancient architectural secrecy, where the most vital functions were often concealed within plain sight. Across the ancient world, builders were not just creating monuments, they were engineering invisibility. They constructed hidden bridges that looked like natural rock formations from a distance, allowing caravans to cross chasms without revealing their presence. They built vast underground storage facilities known as Horia beneath Roman cities, where grain and treasure could be kept safe from prying eyes. In the deserts of Jordan, entire cities were carved directly into the cliffs, their entrances camouflaged to blend seamlessly with the surrounding landscape. These were not just dwellings, they were fortresses of secrecy. The expert doctor, John Otzendorf, has spent his career studying how these ancient builders thought. He emphasizes that they used local materials not just for durability, but for discretion. A bridge built from the same stone as the canyon walls, or a fort colored with local pigments, would simply disappear into the environment. This philosophy reached its peak with the Qanat systems of ancient Persia. On the surface, these were merely lines of access shafts dotting the desert. But deep underground, they connected to a hidden, gravity-fed tunnel that carried water for miles. This subterranean marvel did more than sustain life. It created a cool, shaded, and completely concealed transport route. Traders and messengers could travel through these tunnels, moving between oases without ever facing the scorching sun or the watchful eyes of surface patrols. How did anyone find their way through such intentionally hidden worlds? This seamless fusion of architecture and secrecy was the bedrock that made the entire global network possible, pointing toward the sophisticated navigational tools that guided travelers through a world designed to remain unseen. A Viking sailor lost in a featureless gray fog could still find his way to a hidden cove in Greenland. He did not consult a chart, but held a translucent crystal of Iceland spar to the sky, using the polarization of sunlight to pinpoint the sun's location even on an overcast day. This sunstone was more than a tool. It was a key to the invisible, a piece of secret knowledge that unlocked entire continents. Across the globe, the art of wayfinding transformed the natural world into a living, breathing map, one that could never be captured on parchment and could only be read by the initiated. The Polynesian navigators whom we met on the open Pacific did not simply memorize star paths. They built a mental model of the entire ocean, feeling the subtle deflection of swells as they bounced off distant, unseen islands, reading the specific types of clouds that gathered over lagoons and following the flight paths of birds at dusk that always led back to land. This was a dynamic, living science passed from one generation to the next through chants and stories, a sacred trust that ensured the survival of their people. In China, the discovery of lodestones, pieces of magnetite that align with the Earth's magnetic field, led to the creation of the first compasses. Initially used for geomancy and aligning buildings, this technology was soon adapted for clandestine travel. A merchant on a secret overland route could use a simple, spoon-shaped lodestone on a bronze plate to maintain his direction through a sandstorm or a moonless night, keeping to a path that left no visible trail. As the historian Dr. John Noble Wilford observed, these skills were not common knowledge. They were proprietary secrets as valuable as the cargo being carried. A master navigator's understanding of the sea or a steppe nomad's knowledge of the land was their most prized possession, fiercely protected and selectively shared. This expertise even extended to reading the behavior of the natural world. Overland travelers learned to follow the migratory paths of birds and caribou, trusting that these animals instinctively knew the safest and most efficient corridors through mountain ranges and across rivers. Their annual journeys had carved perfect, natural highways through the wilderness long before humans ever arrived. This profound, multi-layered intelligence was the glue that held the entire system together. Without these masters of wayfinding, the secret networks would have dissolved into chaos, their routes lost to the next generation. The ability to move with precision and confidence across trackless seas and empty deserts, guided only by the whispers of nature, was the ultimate expression of human ingenuity. It was this very ingenuity that kept the lifeblood of the ancient world flowing in secret, but such valuable and vulnerable systems were never truly safe. A caravan master's greatest fear was not the desert's emptiness, but the sudden glint of steel in a narrow pass. The secret networks, for all their ingenuity, existed in a state of constant peril, balanced between immense profit and total ruin. A single ambush by bandits in a remote canyon could do more than steal goods. It could expose the route itself, rendering an entire covert corridor useless for years. These systems faced a relentless onslaught of threats, both from the unforgiving natural world and from human greed and conflict. A sudden avalanche could seal a vital mountain passage for generations. A monstrous sandstorm in the Sahara could erase every landmark, stranding an entire caravan and its priceless knowledge in a featureless grave. Piracy on the high seas was an ever-present shadow, turning secret sea lanes into hunting grounds. But perhaps the most insidious danger was betrayal. The moment a trusted guide, tempted by a rival's gold, would reveal the location of a hidden well or a clandestine way station, unraveling a web of trust that had taken decades to weave. Historian Dr. Ian Morris points to the sophisticated measures empires took to counter these risks. They deployed elite scouts to range far ahead of caravans, checking for signs of ambush or natural obstruction. Covert guards disguised as simple travelers would mingle with merchant groups, their true purpose known only to the network's inner circle. Despite these precautions, the systems were profoundly fragile. The Mongol Empire's legendary Yam postal system, a breathtaking network of relay stations and riders that could carry messages across continents at incredible speed, did not fall to an external enemy. It collapsed from within, shattered by internal strife and political betrayal, proving that no network was stronger than the trust that bound it together. These constant vulnerabilities forced a culture of relentless adaptation. A collapsed tunnel in Cappadocia meant engineers had to secretly carve a new one. A pirate-infested coast prompted sailors to discover a new chain of hidden islands for shelter. This was the hidden cost of secrecy, a never-ending battle against the elements and human nature, a battle that demanded resilience above all else. And it is this very struggle for survival that would ultimately foreshadow the end of their entire world. A hidden port on the Arabian coast, once a hive of clandestine activity, fell silent as new ships arrived bearing not merchants, but detailed charts and imperial surveyors. The Age of Secrecy was drawing to a close, not with a dramatic collapse, but with the slow, relentless creep of accurate map-making. The very tools that made global navigation easier for empires also stripped the ancient networks of their power, rendering their closely guarded geographical knowledge obsolete. Centralized states began to consolidate their control, drawing firm borders and imposing strict regulations on trade that left little room for the old, shadowy corridors. Colonial expansions then completed this process, as European powers mapped and claimed territories that had once been navigable only through oral tradition and cryptic stone markers. A secret oasis in the Sahara, known for generations to a single family of guides, lost all its value the moment a European map labeled it with a name and a precise coordinate. Historian Dr. William McNeill observed that this wave of globalization made large-scale secrecy less necessary, as open, state-controlled systems promised a different kind of efficiency and security. Environmental shifts also played a cruel role. The Little Ice Age altered weather patterns, drying up ancient wells and making once reliable mountain passes impassable for longer periods, severing links that had endured for centuries. Meanwhile, the very connectivity the networks provided became their own undoing, as the spread of devastating diseases along these paths decimated the populations who had maintained them. The intricate knowledge of a hidden trail died with the last elder who remembered the way. This transition into obscurity was the end of an era defined by invisible pathways and silent commerce. Yet the ghost of these networks never truly vanished. Their legacy was simply waiting, embedded in the foundations of our modern world, ready to be rediscovered in the most unexpected of places. The silent desert cave had guarded its secret for 2,000 years. Then a brush swept away the dust, revealing a cache of Roman glassware lying beside a bundle of Chinese silk. This was not a random scattering of lost goods. It was a snapshot of a hidden transaction, a single frame from a film of ancient global connection that we are only now beginning to see. Modern archaeology has become a tool for listening to these whispers from the past, transforming legends of secret networks into tangible, physical evidence. Technologies like LiDAR, which uses lasers to map the ground from the air, are peeling back the jungle canopy and the desert sands to reveal the ghostly imprints of trails that no modern eye has ever seen. These are not the grand, paved Roman roads, but the subtle, unpaved paths that ran parallel to them, the very covert corridors used by merchants to avoid imperial tolls. From above, we can now trace their entire route, seeing how they snaked through the most unforgiving terrain, a clear testament to a deliberate and sophisticated system of concealment. The work of experts like Dr. Sarah Parcak with satellite imagery has been revolutionary. She and her colleagues scan vast regions, looking for subtle discolorations in the soil or minute variations in vegetation that signal something man-made lies beneath. A line of slightly different grass in the Egyptian desert becomes the trace of a hidden caravan route. A faint, circular depression in a field in Turkey reveals the entrance to a long-lost underground city. These are not just discoveries, they are resurrections, bringing these secret pathways back into the light. The underground cities of Cappadocia are a perfect example. For centuries, locals spoke of them as folklore. Then, archaeologists began to excavate, uncovering not just a few tunnels, but vast, multi-level subterranean metropolises. They found ventilation shafts disguised as wells, massive rolling stone doors to barricade against invaders, and entire chambers dedicated to pressing wine and pressing olives. This was not a temporary refuge, it was a fully functioning hidden society, a clear hub in a network that allowed people and goods to move invisibly across the landscape. Each new shipwreck explored on the ocean floor adds another piece to the puzzle. These sunken vessels are time capsules, their cargo holds filled with unofficial trade goods that contradict the official records of their time. An Arabic dhow found off the coast of Indonesia, for instance, carried a treasure trove of artifacts from a dozen different cultures, proof of a complex, interlinked maritime network that operated far beyond the reach of any single empire. Even the smallest artifacts speak volumes. A piece of pottery found in Kenya with a cryptic inscription, when scanned with advanced imaging, reveals a merchant's coded tally of goods delivered. These are the receipts of the shadow economy, written in a language meant to be understood only by the initiated. This growing mountain of evidence does more than just validate old stories. It fundamentally bridges the past and the present. We look at the hidden fiber optic cables running beneath our oceans or the encrypted data packets flying through our air, and we see the direct descendants of those hidden desert trails and coded drum messages. The human impulse to connect, to trade, and to protect those connections with secrecy is a constant thread woven through time. That hidden Roman glassware and Chinese silk lying together in a cave is more than an ancient mystery. It is a direct mirror to our modern world. The same human impulses that carved those secret paths through deserts and mountains now build digital tunnels through the global internet. Think of the online world not as a new frontier, but as the latest landscape for an age-old behavior, the creation of networks that exist just outside the mainstream's view. The internet itself functions as a digital version of those ancient pathways, connecting people and facilitating exchanges across continents, often completely invisibly to the general public. Sociologist Dr. Manuel Castells spent decades studying this phenomenon, noting that both ancient and modern networks serve a similar core purpose. They facilitate alternative exchanges outside of official, controlled channels. Just as a merchant in Babylon might have used a back alley to avoid the king's tax, a modern individual might use an encrypted app to communicate or a digital marketplace to trade outside of traditional financial systems. The structure is strikingly familiar, a decentralized web of trust and specialized knowledge required for safe passage. The dark web, for instance, is not so different from the hidden maritime lanes of the Phoenicians. It is a collection of covert routes known only to those with the right tools and knowledge, allowing for the movement of information and goods away from the watchful eyes of authorities. Even our economic tools echo the past. The rise of cryptocurrencies, with their decentralized ledgers and peer-to-peer transactions, powerfully mirrors the ancient barter systems that operated on trust and direct exchange, completely bypassing centralized banks or royal mints. A handful of digital coins traded online is the direct descendant of a pouch of cowrie shells traded in a hidden desert caravanserai. This is not to say the purposes are always the same, but the underlying strategy for bypassing control is a timeless constant. These parallels force a profound reflection. What lessons do these ancient, resilient systems offer us today? They teach us that the desire for connection, for trade, and for a space beyond control is a fundamental part of the human story. They show us that centralization often breeds its own shadow, a decentralized network that is more agile, more resilient, and often more innovative. As we navigate our own world of firewalls, encryption, and global data flows, we are simply walking the same hidden trails, only now they are made of light and code instead of sand and stone. A community in the Pacific Northwest today might trade salmon for apples through a local exchange system, a direct echo of those ancient nomadic barter trails. This modern application is not mere nostalgia. It is a conscious revival of the core principles that made the old networks so resilient. The first and most vital lesson is decentralization. Just as no single king could control the entire web of step paths or secret sea lanes, these modern local networks thrive because they are not managed from a central point. Power and knowledge are distributed, making the entire system far less vulnerable to a single point of failure, whether that failure is a collapsed global supply chain or a shift in international policy. This structure inherently builds resilience, the second great lesson. An ancient caravan could reroute around a bandit-infested pass because it had multiple, equally secret options. In the same way, a community connected through a decentralized trade network can withstand shocks, finding new local sources for what it needs when distant suppliers falter. The third lesson is perhaps the most profound: cultural empathy. When a trader in a hidden caravanserai shared a story from a distant land, he was not just passing the time, he was building a bridge of understanding. These networks forced a deep, practical empathy, a necessity for survival and success in a world of diverse peoples and customs. The historian Yuval Noah Harari often points out that large-scale human cooperation is founded on such shared fictions and mutual understanding, a truth those ancient travelers knew intimately. Their secrecy was not always for nefarious purposes. It was often a tool to protect autonomy and foster innovation outside the stifling control of a monolithic authority. This ethical use of concealment allowed new ideas, from bronze smelting to Buddhist philosophy, the space to develop and spread. We can even apply their navigational genius to modern crises. The Polynesian technique of reading ocean swells to find unseen islands is now being studied to improve disaster response, helping predict the paths of floods or direct aid through the most effective, if unconventional, routes. The enduring relevance of these secrets lies in their timeless logic. They show us that robust, human-centered systems are not about building higher walls, but about weaving stronger, more adaptable, and often more discreet connections. This wisdom from the past provides a powerful lens through which to examine our own world, a truth that becomes undeniable when we explore specific, real-world case studies. The secret of purple was worth more than any treasure a king could hoard. It began in a secluded cove where a Phoenician sailor would carefully pry a spiny murex snail from a sun-washed rock. From thousands of these unassuming creatures came a few precious drops of a liquid that, when exposed to sunlight, transformed into a deep, vibrant purple. This was not a simple color. It was a symbol of ultimate power and divinity, so valuable that its production became one of the most fiercely guarded secrets of the ancient world. The entire operation was a masterpiece of clandestine logistics. The dye workshops were not located in bustling city centers, but in remote, fortified compounds, often on small, easily defensible islands or in hidden coastal inlets where the smoke and the potent, unpleasant odor of boiling snail glands could be concealed. Access was restricted to a select few, and the precise chemical process for stabilizing the color was a family secret, passed from parent to child under a shroud of strict silence. Historian Dr. Maria Eugenia Orbit's research reveals how this secrecy was their ultimate weapon. By controlling every step from harvesting to final dyeing, the Phoenicians created an unbreakable monopoly. They did not just sell a product, they controlled the very knowledge of its existence. To distribute this royal commodity, they relied on their secret maritime network. Their ships followed concealed sea lanes, navigating to covert colonies established solely for this trade. A merchant in Greece or Egypt would never know where the dye originated, only that a Phoenician trader could supply it for an astronomical price. They even wove a protective veil of mythology around their enterprise, spreading tales that the dye was a gift from the gods, its production a divine mystery too profound for mortals to comprehend. This was a brilliant strategy, using superstition to deter industrial espionage. Their trade agreements were equally covert, likely sealed with encrypted symbols or verbal codes understood only by trusted partners. A broken contract or a betrayed secret meant immediate exclusion from the network, a death sentence for a merchant's business. This single case of purple dye demonstrates with stunning clarity how economic incentive was the primary engine for these ancient secret networks. The pursuit of profit drove the Phoenicians to master the arts of concealment, creating a shadow empire built not on land, but on hidden knowledge and invisible sea routes. Their success proves that in the ancient economy, the most powerful asset was not always an army, but a secret kept. High in the Andes, a runner moved along a ledge invisible from the main road below. While the great royal highways of the Inca Empire stretched across the mountains for all to see, the true mechanisms of control flowed through these secret paths, a clandestine network reserved for the military, the priesthood, and the emperor's most urgent command. This was the hidden layer of the world's most advanced ancient road system, a masterpiece of engineering designed to be both seen and unseen. The official Capac Nyan, or Royal Road, was a public spectacle of imperial power, but these covert trails were its strategic nervous system. They allowed armies to be repositioned without warning, messengers to bypass congested public routes, and priests to travel to sacred sites without the gaze of commoners. The entire empire's stability depended on this duality, on the ability to project public order while operating in the shadows. Archaeologist Dr. John Hislop's research reveals how these paths were not just hidden, but seamlessly integrated with the natural world. They followed ridgelines to remain unseen from valleys, used natural rock formations for cover, and were often carved directly into cliff faces, making them accessible only to those who knew they were there. This genius for concealment extended to the network's most vital points of connection. The Incas built spectacular suspension bridges woven from mountain grasses, capable of spanning deep gorges. The knowledge of how to maintain and repair these vital structures was a closely guarded secret, entrusted only to specific families of engineers from local communities. If a rebellion broke out in a distant province, Imperial troops could use a secret path to reach a crucial bridge, secure it, and cut the region off, all before the rebels even knew they were coming. This system of hidden infrastructure allowed a relatively small administrative elite to control a vast and geographically brutal empire, from the deserts of Chile to the rainforests of Ecuador. It demonstrates a universal principle of power, that control is not just about building visible monuments, but about mastering the invisible pathways that connect them. And just as the Incas carved secret trails into the mountains, another civilization was weaving a hidden web across the ocean, one that connected islands separated by thousands of miles of open water. A Tuareg guide's survival depended on knowing which dune concealed a secret well. While the grand Trans-Saharan caravan routes captured the world's imagination, the true lifeblood of trade and survival flowed through these clandestine corridors, paths deliberately charted through the most desolate stretches of the desert to avoid not only the brutal slave traders but also the heavy taxes and conflicts of the main trails. This was a shadow network moving the very foundations of West African power, gold from the south exchanged for salt from the north, alongside other vital commodities. The historian Dr. Nehemiah Levtsian meticulously documented how these secret routes were not just economic diversions. they were the critical infrastructure that fueled the rise of empires like Ghana and Mali, allowing wealth and knowledge to accumulate away from the gaze of rivals. The entire system was a masterclass in environmental intelligence. It relied entirely on the profound, guarded knowledge of nomadic tribes like the Tuareg and the Berbers. These guides held mental maps of hidden oases and seasonal waterholes, locations that were more precious than any gemstone and were protected with a fierce secrecy. To navigate the featureless ocean of sand by day, they used the sun's position with uncanny precision. But by night, they became celestial sailors, reading the constellations as a perfect, unchangeable map. The rotation of the stars around the northern pole provided a constant, reliable compass, guiding caravans on a true course where every other landmark had been erased by the wind. This sacred navigational wisdom was protected by complex secret societies. Membership in these groups was exclusive, bound by solemn oaths and intricate initiation rituals. The routes themselves, the locations of the wells, and the identities of key contacts were compartmentalized knowledge, ensuring that no single person, even if captured or bribed, could unravel the entire web. This decentralized structure made the network incredibly resilient. If one path was discovered or compromised, another could be activated, a different sequence of hidden waypoints known only to another cell within the society. This highlights the indispensable, though often unrecorded, role of women in these systems. While the male guides led the caravans, women frequently managed the hidden desert communities that served as way stations. They preserved the water sources, stored emergency supplies, and acted as the stable, enduring nodes of the network, ensuring there was a safe haven to return to after a months-long journey. Their knowledge of local plants and hidden springs was a form of power, a quiet authority that sustained the entire perilous operation. This case study in desert survival reveals the ultimate expression of a secret network, one where human adaptability and profound trust forged invisible roads across an environment designed to erase all traces of passage. Her ledgers were hidden among the household accounts, a perfect cover for a thriving covert enterprise. In the shadows of societies that often restricted their public roles, women became the unseen architects of secret networks, leveraging their domestic spheres to orchestrate trade, gather intelligence, and build bridges between cultures. While official records celebrated the deeds of kings and male merchants, the vital work of women frequently occurred just beneath the surface, in the quiet spaces where they faced less scrutiny. The historian Dr. Gerda Lerner observed that the very seclusion of women's lives could be transformed into a strategic asset, turning homes and courtyards into secure hubs for clandestine meetings and the storage of forbidden goods. A woman in ancient Mesopotamia, for instance, could manage a complex import business from her courtyard, receiving shipments of rare dyes or metals under the guise of routine household provisioning, her activities invisible to the tax collectors who monitored the main markets. This ability to operate discreetly made women indispensable as cultural mediators along the Silk Road. Merchant women frequently facilitated cross-cultural marriages, forging powerful alliances that bound trading families from Rome to Chang'an, together with bonds of kinship and trust that were far stronger than any temporary contract. These marriages created a hidden international aristocracy, a web of relational diplomacy that stabilized trade routes for generations. From the desert way stations managed by Tuareg women to the spice merchants operating out of Venetian households, this perspective forces us to completely rethink who held power in the ancient world. It reveals a system that was profoundly inclusive in its practicality, drawing on every available resource and every willing participant to build a web of connection that was as diverse as it was secretive. This reliance on hidden actors and unconventional spaces naturally demanded equally clever tools, pushing the boundaries of ancient technology to support the silent, efficient flow of information and goods. The ancient engineer's hidden lock was a masterpiece of misdirection. Its mechanism, forged from a unique bronze alloy, appeared simple yet defied any key but its own. This was more than a clever device. It was a testament to how technological innovation became the lifeblood of secrecy itself. For these networks to survive, they needed tools and systems that were as advanced as they were concealed. The very act of hiding spurred incredible creativity, pushing ancient science to new heights in metallurgy, communication, and engineering. Historian Dr. James Burke has long argued that necessity is not the mother of invention, but of innovation, and the relentless necessity for secrecy drove some of the most ingenious adaptations in the ancient world. Consider the problem of ventilation in a vast, hidden underground city. The Persian windcatcher or badger was a brilliant solution. From the surface, it looked like a simple, ornate tower catching the breeze. But below ground, its carefully angled shafts funneled fresh, cool air deep into concealed chambers and meeting halls, while simultaneously drawing out stale air and the telltale smoke of cooking fires. This allowed entire communities to live and work beneath the sand without a trace of their presence rising into the desert sky. The development of writing systems was equally pivotal. Early forms of cryptography turned mundane messages into unbreakable codes. A merchant's inventory list, written in a forgotten script or using a substitution cipher, could detail a secret meeting place or the true nature of his cargo, all while appearing to be a simple record of grain shipments. The invention of paper in China was a revolution in covert communication. Compared to heavy, cumbersome bamboo slips or expensive silk, paper was light, durable, and could be easily concealed, folded into a small packet and hidden in a sleeve or a false compartment in a merchant's cart. It made the discreet movement of complex information faster and more efficient than ever before. Even the very architecture of secrecy relied on acoustic science. In the labyrinthine tunnels beneath places like Cappadocia, sound became a tool. Certain chambers were carved with specific dimensions to function as whispering galleries, where a spoken word could travel clearly for dozens of meters along a curved wall, allowing messages to be passed in total darkness without a single torch to betray the messenger's location. This symphony of innovation, from the metallurgy of a hidden lock to the physics of a windcatcher, reveals a world where the drive to remain unseen directly shaped the progress of technology. Every solution created to protect a secret route or a hidden transaction required a deep understanding of the material world. This relentless, creative problem-solving did more than just sustain the networks. It began to subtly reshape the very environments through which they passed, leaving a hidden footprint on the planet itself. A hidden trade route did more than move silk and spices. It quietly reshaped the very earth beneath its feet. The constant passage of caravans and the need to maintain these secret paths led to localized deforestation, as trees were felled for firewood and to clear the way. Over time, this left slopes vulnerable, triggering soil erosion that could silt up distant rivers and alter entire watersheds. But the most profound environmental changes were often the most subtle, the accidental transfer of species. A seed caught in the hem of a trader's robe, a rodent stowing away in a cargo hold. These tiny stowaways could cross continents along these covert corridors, introducing new plants and animals to ecosystems that had never encountered them before. Ecologist Dr. Jared Diamond has shown how these trade networks acted as an accelerator for ecological exchange long before the age of Columbus. Consider the spread of rice. While we think of it as a staple of Asian diets, its cultivation traveled along secret overland routes from China into the Korean peninsula and beyond. This was not a public, state-sponsored project, but a quiet, farmer-to-farmer diffusion of knowledge and seeds, moving through hidden valleys and along secluded river systems. Each new rice paddy carved into a hillside represented a deliberate, if small, transformation of the local landscape, a change in hydrology and biodiversity that rippled out from those secret exchanges. The introduction of a single non-native plant could outcompete local flora, while new animals could disrupt predator-prey relationships that had been in balance for millennia. This interaction reveals a powerful truth that human connectivity, even when deliberately concealed, carries an ecological signature. The silent, deliberate steps of a merchant avoiding a tax collector could, over centuries, lead to the greening of a desert oasis or the erosion of a once forested mountainside. These long-term effects on biodiversity and landscapes force us to see these networks not just as historical curiosities, but as active participants in shaping the natural world. How did these environmental pressures, born from the need for secrecy, then influence the political stability of the empires that relied on them? A king's true power was not always in his public decrees, but in the messages he could send without anyone knowing. These secret networks became the ultimate political tool, allowing rulers to consolidate control by mastering the invisible flow of information, wealth, and force. The very existence of these hidden pathways created a new kind of power dynamic, one where influence could be projected silently across vast distances, completely outside the view of the public or even a ruler's own court. A state could appear stable and peaceful on the surface, while its stability was actually maintained through clandestine corridors used to discreetly move troops, funnel money to allies, or intercept the communications of rivals. Political scientist Dr. Francis Fukuyama has long analyzed how such secrecy can simultaneously strengthen a state's control while undermining the transparency that fosters long-term trust in its institutions. This delicate balance between covert power and public legitimacy defined the rise and fall of empires. Consider the Han Dynasty in ancient China. When a rebellion erupted in a distant province, the emperor's public response might seem measured and slow. But behind the scenes, his most loyal legions were already on the move, not along the main, watched roads, but through a web of hidden mountain trails known only to his most trusted generals. These covert movements allowed him to surround and crush the rebellion before it could even fully mobilize, a demonstration of power that was both absolute and utterly invisible. This capacity for deniable action fostered a world of covert diplomacy. Alliances were brokered not in grand throne rooms, but in secluded caravanserais or aboard ships in hidden coves. A promise of support, a shipment of gold, or a threat of sabotage could be exchanged without any public record, allowing empires to manipulate their rivals and manage their territories with a ghost's touch. This system inevitably gave rise to what we might call shadow empires, networks of influence controlled not by a single crowned head, but by the merchants, priests, and nomadic chieftains who actually held the keys to the hidden routes. Their power did not come from a throne, but from the ability to open or close the valves of global exchange. The complex motivations behind these networks reveal a fundamental truth about governance in the ancient world. Control was not just about ruling the land you could see, but about mastering the connections everyone else missed. And just as these hidden pathways shaped the realities of power, they also began to weave themselves into the very myths and legends that gave those powers their divine right to rule. A king's legend was often written not by his scribes, but by the whispers of merchants on a hidden trail. The stories of secret networks did not simply vanish when the routes fell silent. They transformed, blooming into the myths and legends that have captivated humanity for centuries. Tales of shimmering cities of gold like El Dorado were not pure fantasy. They were romanticized echoes of real, clandestine trade in gold and emeralds moving along routes the common person could never see. When a traveler returned from a years-long journey with stories of impossible wealth in a distant land, the precise, secret path he took became obscured by time and telling, leaving only the glittering destination to fuel the dreams of explorers for generations. This blurring of fact and fiction was a natural byproduct of secrecy itself. The unknown always invites the magical. A hidden mountain pass used by spice traders could easily become a gateway to a lost civilization in the stories told around a campfire. A secluded oasis known only to a few could be remembered as a magical spring with healing waters. The folklorist Dr. Joseph Campbell spent his life studying this phenomenon, arguing that these enduring myths speak to a fundamental human desire for connection to something greater, a mystery just beyond the horizon. Our ancestors were mapping the world of the spirit onto the geography of the secret network. Consider the Arthurian legends of Britain. The quest for the Holy Grail, a sacred object of immense power, mirrors the real, perilous journeys along ancient tin trade routes that crisscross the same landscapes. The knights traveling through a mystical, enchanted Britain are a literary reflection of the merchants and messengers who moved through a very real but hidden web of paths, their true purpose known only to a chosen few. These stories served a vital purpose. They preserved the cultural memory of these routes long after the precise knowledge of them was lost. A legend about a hidden city encouraged new generations to explore, to push beyond the known world, often following the very same geographical corridors that the original secret networks had used. This mythological layer adds a profound depth to our understanding. It reveals that the true power of these networks was not just in what they transported, but in the dreams they inspired. They captured the human imagination so completely that their reality dissolved into fable, creating a palimpsest where history and legend are forever intertwined. This same imagination, however, would present a formidable challenge for those who later sought to find the physical truth behind the stories. A researcher's most vital clue might be a single line in a merchant's diary, found in a library on the other side of the world from the artifact it describes. Reconstructing these secret networks is a monumental puzzle where the pieces are deliberately scattered, broken, and often hidden behind modern political borders. The physical evidence is frustratingly scarce by design. These were pathways meant to leave no trace. A hidden trail erodes back into the mountain, a clandestine port succumbs to the rising sea, and a merchant's coded ledger is discarded as meaningless. What remains are fragments, and those fragments are often viewed through the biased lens of the victors. Official Imperial records might dismiss these covert routes as the work of bandits or smugglers, deliberately downplaying their economic and cultural significance to maintain the illusion of total state control. This forces modern scholars like archaeologist Dr. Lynn Meskel to confront profound ethical dilemmas. How do you excavate a hidden temple that is also an active, sacred site for a living community? The pursuit of knowledge must be carefully balanced with deep respect for cultural heritage and spiritual traditions. A tunnel network that is an archaeological treasure to one group is a sacred ancestral space to another. The work is further complicated by the sheer scope of these networks, which span multiple modern nations, each with its own regulations, research priorities, and political sensitivities. Securing funding and permissions for a dig that crosses 3 international borders is a logistical labyrinth that can take years to navigate, if it is even possible. To overcome these hurdles, researchers have turned to powerful interdisciplinary approaches. They are no longer just archaeologists with trowels. but a collaborative force of geologists analyzing soil composition, linguists deciphering forgotten trade dialects, and geneticists tracing the movement of ancient plant remains and human DNA. A single pollen grain found in the sediment of a long-dried-up well can reveal the path of a trade good, like cotton or pepper, that passed through a region 1,000 years ago. Satellite data can identify subtle geological scars left by countless caravan animals, revealing a route that is completely invisible from the ground. These obstacles are a stark reminder that the past does not give up its secrets easily, especially the secrets it worked so hard to keep. Each discovery is a hard-won victory against silence, a testament to the enduring human need to understand the hidden connections that shaped our world. The same principle that guided a water tunnel beneath a desert now guides a subway train beneath a metropolis. Our modern world is built upon the skeletal remains of these ancient secret networks, their logic of covert connectivity reborn in steel, concrete, and light. The legacy is everywhere, from the labyrinth of underground transport systems mirroring those hidden city passages to the encrypted digital packets that travel our information highways, unseen and protected. Urban visionary Dr. Jan Jael often highlights how the most functional city designs learn from this organic, human-scale connectivity, where movement is both efficient and discreet. Consider the fiber optic cables laid along the bed of the old Silk Road, their path tracing the same covert corridors once walked by camels and merchants. These are not coincidences, but a continuous evolution of an ancient strategy. The drive to connect while remaining concealed is a thread woven through time, from the Qanat tunnels of Persia to the server farms of the modern age. This enduring influence invites a moment of reflection. As we navigate our own complex world of hidden infrastructures, we are walking in the footsteps of those ancient engineers and traders, participating in a story of human connection that is far older and far more ingenious than we often realize. A privacy advocate today fighting for digital rights is using a strategy as old as the hidden desert trails. The lessons from these ancient secret networks are not locked in the past. They are a living blueprint for our modern world. They teach us about resilience in the face of overwhelming power, about the incredible strength found in cultural diversity, and about the delicate, constant dance between our need for openness and our right to secrecy. The writer Rebecca Solnit beautifully observes that mapping the past is a way to navigate the future. She suggests that understanding these old, hidden paths allows us to see the potential for new, more humane kinds of innovation. We can look at the ancient trade routes and see a powerful model for today's fair trade movements. The core principle is the same, creating ethical, direct connections between producers and consumers, bypassing the exploitative middlemen that dominated both ancient empires and modern global markets. Just as a merchant on the Silk Road might have dealt directly with a family of weavers, a fair trade cooperative today ensures a farmer receives a just price, building a network of trust and transparency that echoes those ancient personal agreements. These historical echoes underscore a timeless truth about human connectivity. Our drive to link our lives with others, to share ideas and build community, is a fundamental force. And sometimes the most profound progress is not made in the bright light of public squares, but in the quiet, determined spaces we carve out for ourselves, the hidden networks that protect what we hold most dear. That hidden pathway wins not just through deserts and mountains, but through time itself, connecting our modern world to the silent, determined footsteps of our ancestors. We have walked the covert trails of the Silk Road, navigated the secret sea lanes of the Phoenicians, and descended into the subterranean cities where entire societies thrived in the dark. These were not mere footnotes to history, but the very arteries that carried the lifeblood of civilization, moving ideas, beliefs, and innovations across continents long before any map claimed to know the way. This journey reveals a profound and enduring truth about human nature, our relentless drive to connect, to trade, and to protect those vital connections with ingenuity and secrecy. The legacy of these networks challenges us to look at our own world of fiber optics and global supply chains with new eyes, to see the ancient patterns of resilience and decentralized trust reborn in digital form. It asks us to consider what we might be overlooking today and to value the diverse, often hidden connections that truly make our world rich. Thank you for exploring these hidden depths with us. We would love to hear which of these ancient secrets resonated most with you in the comments below. And if you are ready for more journeys into the past, subscribe to keep the exploration alive.